G'day guys, it's Calvin and Jason from the Cartoon Company in New Zealand. Today I'm testing a couple of wiring looms, which is the same as I do quite frequently, but we're going to discuss the changes we will make to a wiring loom if the customer indicates to us that they might one day supercharge the engine. This is a really good time because Jason is doing a supercharged loom, well, a potential maybe could be supercharged 3UZ.
Probably never happened, but
maybe not. I think the 3UZ is going to go well for what he wanted, but he did start with a non-VVTi engine, and in the process of doing the swap, he changed to a 3UZ, which was what we originally started with. And then he said, maybe we'll supercharge it, maybe we won't, but we've allowed for it in the wiring loom. I've got two very basic little monsoon looms to do. One's the standard style and one's the supercharged style. And whilst the monsoon isn't ideal for supercharging, if you are on a budget, it can be used just fine. Got relay blocks. Now, these relay blocks, whether it's a Storm, whether it's a Haltech, whether it's a Link, whether it's a Monsoon or an Atom, we pretty much use this same setup for all of them. And they work really, really well. We've got an EFI or an ECU relay, an ignition relay which does the coils, a start relay, a fuel pump relay and a fan relay. Well, that's like our generic setup. Sometimes we'll drop that fella out of there, the start, but that plugs into all of them, so that's really simple. We run the same DT12 plug, and then we put that on pretty much all of our looms where we can. Here I've got the little monsoon loom. This one is for the normal leads, so Old Yellow's had a set of leads fitted. Old Yellow does have the idle speed control unit right there. That's a bolt-on unit. And that's one of the items that we will change if we're supercharging. Whilst this one can be used and it can have that fitting welded on, we'll often swap to a slightly different style, like the weld-on fitting. So we often swap to this style, which comes with a weld-on adapter, and it gets its ear externally from, which is the same as that one really. That one gets it externally, just from in a different style. So this is more suited for the likes of a supercharger. Right, I'm going to get this little loom and I'm going to flick it on. But the very first thing we would normally do is the loom that goes to the starter motor. So with our aftermarket wiring looms, they've got the starter motor trigger, which is under the valley. So you need to put it on before you put this on, okay? I actually had a phone call, no I didn't, I had an email from a man in Australia, a mechanic, and he didn't make the customer very happy because he contacted me and said, hey, where does this loom go? And I'm like, it's the one under the manifold to the starter. And he'd actually almost fitted everything. That customer's not very happy actually with the way the mechanic fitted it up. So it is important to put that loom in first. Now if you're running a computer that will allow double knock sensors, then we will supply one with 4 wires in it. And so you've got the starter motor trigger, the 2 knock sensors, and the earth to each of those sensors. See that bugger there? I asked the guys to change an alternator this morning. And what did you say? What did Shay say this morning?
it's an alternator.
Yeah, you sure it's an alternator?
He's also been calling an alternator a power steering pump.
Yeah, I have been.
And power steering pumps alternators.
And air conditioning pumps alternators.
And alternators, power steering pumps.
Yeah, I know. I'm mixed up. They were just giving me shit. Right, so here we go. There's the 4-wire connector. Comes down. We've got a start trigger. And of course there are 2 different kinds of start triggers. That style and the early style. And that's the early style starter motor connector. I still haven't done a starter motor video. I'll get around to doing one of those as well. Then we have the 3-wire one, which is we use for the single knock sensors. Okay, so we have the starter motor trigger, and a knock sensor. If we're running a standard type loom, we also run the 3-pin plug. So that one has a, or if you don't want to upgrade to the 2-wire knock sensors, but I do prefer those. We have this style, which has got a start trigger and the 2 single wire narrow band knock sensors. We also do them as just the start trigger if you're not running knock sensors. So it's important to put that loom in first with the intake manifold off and make sure it suits the job you're doing. In this case, it's on old Yella. I'm going to test it with the 4-wire, and I just got a bridging wire across from the 3-wire because I'm doing a monsoon. That the customer has opted for a 2-wire knock sensor upgrade, just a single knock sensor, and I've supplied it with the proper stud and the nut. You right over there? You burning stuff?
I just filled this up and it's doing a really big flame.
Big flames, Jace?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like trying to see everything on fire, big flame.
Oh, good stuff. We right-hand drive? We're right-hand drive, eh? And I think I put coils on it, normal coils. We've got enough length. What we're looking on here, we've got this plug here. And we do run a couple of different sensors. This is for oil pressure. This one happens to be a combo sensor, which does pressure and temp.
It's not oil.
Oh, fuel, eh?
That was the fuel one. The oil's going on the oil filter. Have you got oil running through your fuel rail, have you?
No.
You're going for oil injection. Is it a diesel? You're squirting that fucking...
Yeah.
You're squirting that oil.
We're putting oil in it. Okay, that's the fuel pressure sensor and a fuel temp. The little monsoon doesn't do the fuel temp, but it's actually a really cost-effective way to use the same sensor on the oil and the fuel. One sensor, if something fails, easy to replace, easy to get your hands on. We've also got a couple of 3-pin sensors as well that we'll use. This one we've chosen just to run with that. So a lot of people don't run fuel pressure sensors. I think if you can, you should, because it's a great option to have. And that's why we put the plug in the wiring loom. On both the Haltech and... Do we put in the Haltechs as well?
It's all good, isn't it?
Well, that's because it's a 2500. Of course it's got it in a 2500.
Right. They don't make the 500s and things anymore.
Oh, they make a 750.
We've got 750.
I've still got a 750. The next plug we've got is this one, which is air temp. And as I'll show you in the next loom, that's one of the wires that we extend because it's going to go somewhere else, possibly not into the throttle body. It needs to go under a charger if it goes on top. And then TPS. And there's a chance when you supercharge that the TPS isn't in this position, so that's going to be another one that we change. This loom is running coils and leads. We've got this plug here. Some people ask about that one. That's for the purge solenoid, for the emissions. Over here in New Zealand, there's a requirement for CERT to have a working emission system as far as the breather for the fuel tank. So we put a sensor on, we put the wire on for that purpose. If it's not used, just tuck it away. And then we come down, we're about 1200 over to the ECU plug, relays and fuses. We have some dash plugs. And we have a CAN plug. And the CAN between the Haltech and the link will alter. They run the different ways, but that is the link one. This is the link. You're doing the Haltech.
Yeah.
I'm doing the link.
Let's go one from backwards.
Yes. And we also have this little plug here, which is normally down by the crank angle sensor. And that's for our oil pressure subloom. The full house, it's got the air conditioning wire. It's got an oil pressure switch for the light on the dash. And that just comes up to one of the dash plugs. And it's got the oil pressure, oil temp, which goes to the ECU. And often what we do is we do this to the ECU, and then we don't have that, and we do the ECU. That one was done by the ECU. Right, in this case, we're just going to do the single wire output for this one, this particular job. Alright, we've got the earth on the back. I'm going to plug in an ECU and fire this thing up. You feeling a little bit cold, Jace?
No, I'm not.
No, because you've got a heater there, haven't you?
Yeah. It's a little more pleasant in the workshop.
Hold on.
Until he opens the door.
And then we'll come over here by Jace. Let's see what. Oh no, you're still we're still at 10 degrees. Yeah.
It's a little bit cold this morning. We got interrupted yesterday on our testing. And I had to do some wiring on a V12 Jaguar for a neighbour. And normally I don't work on Jaguars, but you look after your neighbours. So it's all white outside, all very white, and we are going to make this engine run and warm up the workshop with fumes.
The workshop with hydrocarbons.
Yep, fill it with hydrocarbons, dull us down a little bit. Alright, what do we do?
I don't think I need dumbing down. I put a wire in, then I can't find that wire.
You can't find the wire? It's in there somewhere.
I don't know where I put it. It's not in the hole that I thought I put it in.
Okay, what are we doing? So real simple over here, guys. I got the fuel pump going out. I put ignition to one of the wires that says ignition in and start in is that one there.
Oh, there's nothing like the sound of the one you see in the morning.
That one's a runner. Now I'm going to swap to the Supercharger loom.
Gary's working.
He's working.
Yeah, can you turn it off for a second?
We could just turn that temperature control off. That would be appreciated too, though.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not fucking our temperature control.
Yeah.
Ignition in, fuel pump, fan, start. So I went shopping.
Oh no.
I went to a drift meeting.
Holy moly! Oh my god. Who has this at a drift meeting? Who has this at a drift meeting?
No, well, I went visiting.
Oh, yes.
We visited a couple of workshops.
Okay, okay.
Spare ECU, throttle bodies, transmission. It's a 5-speeder.
Ooh.
Sump, part of a sump. I don't have the pickup, don't have the dipstick. More manifolds. Oh, there looks like there's an alternator. Oh, I needed an alternator on the weekend for Geordie, and I was carrying one. Oh, we needed an alternator for a replacement for.
The one we just took
Yeah, so we can give that a clean. And this is VVTI stuff.
Oh yes.
So VVTI crossover. Because
It still smells like meat in here.
you know we all had 2.5 cows in there.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's if you can unpack that in. Oh, there's an aircon pump too.
God,
There's a couple of aircon pumps.
you and your aircon.
They got like steam pumps.
Yeah, yeah.
They're aircon. They're definitely aircon. If I had power steer pumps, that'd be cool as well. I don't think I got any power steer pumps.
Okay.
Right, we've swapped wiring looms. So now I'm going to show you the differences between the normal one that's an NA only type loom to our maybe I'm going to supercharge it one day wiring them. This one, we've still got a sensor of some sort for the fuel pressure. Again, that goes in there. Yep. This one just happens to be 3 in a row. But the throttle body is likely to change when you supercharge it, either over here. So we need the throttle position sensor. I put them over here. And the air temp to be able to reach. So we branch them over at the back. And because it's branched here, if it ends up going this side, they will still reach. But they do plug in, of course, in the standard position as well. And then this fella's going to move the idle speed. So again, we've done that. Jake's probably got a little bit carried away with the length on this one. Mind you, if it comes over here about there, it's about right. So, no, it's about right. It's just really long if it goes the other way. But idle speed, because it's really nice to actually have some idle speed. Same stuff still applies. We've got a purge solenoid wire. Oh, I'll put that on. On this one, Jason's tucked in a wire for the factory noise suppressor. I actually did a video on noise suppressors and I've lost the footage. So I probably should do a what the fuck is that video on noise suppressors. And then over here we've got the same little sub loom for oil pressure. And this particular loom is just getting a switch in it. Alright, I think I can slam the throttle body on. Oh, and of course we've got the different sub loom because this one's getting a knock sensor. So Monsoon runs a single knock sensor. So it's a 3-pin Deutsch plug. And it's got the late model start trigger on this one. Oh, make some noise. Oh, I better put a throttle body on before I make noise.
Hello.
The sun's out now, we're good.
Crispy. Hello.
Yeah, so the igniter should be up on the firewall. But it's not on.
I just can't see.
It's tucked in the plenum for the present mounting for the startup. Oh, you got a power steer pump? Woohoo!
Oh no, is that you?
Tough you. I'm not gonna live that down, eh? You're gonna hit that with every time.
It's all we've got.
Earmuffs. Seems good to me. That's exactly the same tune as the last one. Funnily enough, the loom's pretty much exactly the same except for those changes in the supercharger stuff. And they run the same. It's another one done. And it just shows that there's a couple of little changes we can make to our base loom if you do intend to maybe supercharge it in the future. Oh, you want to pin out? You want to pin out for that?
I've only been waiting 3 days for it.
Oh yeah, well. And Jason's done the same with this one, which has got the big long one for the drive-by-wire throttle body and the air temp, if this one is ever supercharged as well.
It seems really long for some reason.
Yeah, it does seem really long, eh? And it just gets cable tied in nicely. I'll find your pin out, eh? So I'm going to pop it off the engine and put it in a box and send it away. And I'll match up the correct accessories that go with it. This morning I've swapped looms from one to another, and it takes about 10-15 minutes to swap it all over. I've done some checking, just confirmed everything in the loom's doing what it should. But when I actually fit one to an engine in a car, it's quite easy to take half a day just to get it right, or even a little bit longer, just to sort out all those little bits and pieces on the loom. And that's if the engine is actually prepped properly, ready to fit the loom. Often we find when we're fitting them, there's some prep stuff that needs to be done, so that extends it, like injector seals, cold start injectors to blank, all those sorts of things. Hope that's been helpful, and we'll talk to you again soon. We'll catch you later. Don't you want to touch it? Do you think you'll catch something?
As Marty Carmods would say, in the bin.
We might save the computer though. That's about the only thing we're going to save, eh? Several auto sparkies have actually attempted to do something with this. And couldn't get it going. That is the before.
I fixed it.
Yes, you did.
In the bin.
Well done. Right, I'll see you at the other end.